Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the SPL. Today is Saturday, June 20th, and we've got an exciting matchup for you today. My name is Tom Baddinger. I'm joined here by Adonis.
It's Adonis, and it's 6 letters, not 5, like I said on the show
You
yesterday.
miscounted.
There's
Anyway,
so many. I get lost.
Jesus, I'm not going to touch longer names. God help you if you try to spell Bart's last name. But anyway, yesterday we talked about our picks a little bit going into it. So today on the matchup card, our first one is going to be from Europe, and it will be Trig versus Team Dignitas.
Yep, let's take a look at the schedule real quick, though. We've already had a couple teams play, and we're going to intro today with Trig and Dignitas, like you said. After that, it's going to be Team Solo Mid and Cognitive Gaming. And then finally, we're going to finish out with Denial versus AFK. Both those teams vying for that land spot. The top 3 in North America go, and they're sitting about the same record.
Yeah, that'll be an exciting one for sure on the North American side of things. Denial and AFK, very, very similar in terms of playstyle almost.
Yes.
Early game leaning towards and similar in skill, so that should definitely be an interesting to watch out for. But we are going to start off on the EU side of things, so why don't we take a look at the snapshot of the current league.
At the top, Fnatic and Tide, London Conspiracy sitting in third. They're not qualified for LAN yet because Trig is right behind them. And something to note here is that Trig they're fourth right now, but they control their own destiny. If they can beat Team Dignitas, they face up against LC next week. If they can win that matchup, they're going to be there and qualify for LAN. Yeah,
don't forget these splits are 2-game series as teams match up against each other. So that 6 can very quickly turn to an 8-4 if Trig goes ahead and wins both games, as well as Dignitas could turn things around for themselves as well with 2 wins in the W column. So very, very interesting swing that we could see here on the SPL on Saturday today. So it could be a very entertaining matchup. And as we think about that a little bit, Trig versus Dignitas, what'd you go ahead and pick? We talked about it yesterday on our show that airs every Friday at 4, but what'd you pick?
I picked Trig, and I think most people did. Trig had a rough start to Split 2 after a fantastic spring split, and people were wondering, even I questioned, I said, like, is Trig really that good? I mean, they're taking a spill. We've seen these super teams fail before. Maybe they just had a lucky spring split. But
and they happened at LAN as well. We didn't see success there.
Yeah, they lost all 7 matchups at LAN, so they didn't have success there. And then they came back. First couple weeks were rough, and then they've turned it around. And even Azalea came on after one of their wins a couple weeks ago and said, we are not losing any more games. And they have yet to lose a game since he said that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Super Team is as you nailed it. You can see on the bottom how everybody across the board, we've gone ahead and picked Trig. They're just a really strong team right now. And yesterday I kind of compared them to a race car with a high-end top speed, but a low-end acceleration. They had some time getting grip on the tires, but as soon as they started going, they've been really hard to stop, and Trig has been dominant in all the positions that they really need to be. Mid lane has been very successful, as well as jungle.
Yeah, but they are matched up against Dignitas, and we talked about how Trig control their own destiny. Dignitas could technically still qualify for LAN, and everything that needs to happen isn't that crazy, but a lot of pieces have to fall in together with London Conspiracy losing to Fnatic, Epsilon losing to Night's Watch. Not super crazy.
But those are all realistic possibilities.
They are. But it's just so many for them. And this is where they're going to have to succeed. You can see them up there on screen. Their stats-wise, they haven't been doing too good. Only a 40% win rate. Their KDA is 2.0. They've played 10 games, matched up with everyone, but they just can't seem to really get anything rolling. They have these good games and strong games, and then they just seem to falter against the best teams.
Inconsistent is a term that we hear a lot about this team. But with that said, we've seen a lot of sort of get-togetherness, especially from Variety, the solo laner. Yeah, meaning they've coalesced into more of a unit than before.
I'm a big fan of using words like get-togetherness to explain.
I mean, it's all about the haptitude and things like that. But no, on a serious note, we've seen Variety go from sort of the go-to choice of analysts and commentators alike to sort of target that, like, well, where is this not working? Because on paper, seems like a very good team. And then as the season got later and later, he's been doing very well.
But I think it's time to get into game F. It's time for the I'm not going to say it. You have to say it. I'm not saying it.
Dot your I's, cross your T's.
The letter 1, the letter 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Sponsored by Adonis, the P's and B's.
No, I'm not.
Give me $5.
I'm not sponsoring P's and B's. It's Curse Voice. We're powered by Curse Voice, not.
Anyway,
Dignitas.
folks, we're going to get in here. Dignitas on the top-hand side in red. We've got Trig on the bottom in blue. First man out will be Ares.
Zerket taken out right after that. And something I do want to note here is Team Dignitas has... You were talking about Variety earlier.
Right.
Variety has actually been very successful in the summer split, and this is, I think, his most improved split. He is actually second in kills for solo laners across North America and Europe.
What a deceptive stat.
Yeah, and they've also been, I mean, he's died a lot too, don't get me wrong. But he's not going to be here today. It's going to be their coach and analyst, Barn, subbing in for him. So missing that piece, I think, is going to be very crucial for Team Dignitas. It's going to be a rough look at the first start.
I'm with you. I think that Variety has really come leaps and bounds. That's sort of what I said in the pregame show about just Variety really coming in and getting into himself, being a little more improved this time around. So with Barn on the field, I mean, we've seen this with Trig specifically when Zimstar comes in. Sometimes you start to see overambitious plays almost, which because the coach, he's there, he's on the battlefield. He's trying to make big things happen. We'll see if Bard really, what kind of style, because Brandon said it yesterday on the show. Brandon, we talked about yesterday. Brandon mentioned it. Variety doesn't play the traditional solo lane. He plays hunters. He doesn't play that frontline Chaac or Vamana type guys. I wonder what Barn can bring to the table.
It'll be interesting. Team Dignitas do have the counter pick for that in the last spot. It'll be interesting if they elect to go that. But some of the picks are coming through. We see very global-oriented team comp coming up from Trig right now.
Yeah.
They pick up Janus. They pick up Apollo. And they first picked Apollo, too, with the Hunter nerfs coming in to their items. It takes them a little bit longer to come online. Bluestone is kind of dead, and really most of them are leaning towards Death's Toll, and Apollo was already using Death's Toll, so it's no hurt to him. It's actually improving him because the other hunters that are relying on wave clear from their abilities are getting hurt this patch.
And that'll take an adjustment. Coming into this, it was a rather quick patch for the teams to really adjust to. Playing the Apollo means that there's no adjustment really necessary. Already used to that sort of basic attack-oriented Death Toll build. On the top side from Team Dignitas, that's not Pain to Beyond, but that is an Odin.
That is an Odin, and it could go in multiple roles. We've seen it in solo support and jungle this season. Neith, though, I think, is going to the solo lane. I think they're going to put Barn on a very safe god where he can farm up and be impactful from the solo lane with his ultimates. Because they have the Sylvanus, right? They already have the push. They don't need the Neith and Sylvanus.
Right.
Pick a harder carry in your hunter role that Sylvanus can just help get through the early game.
You know, we always see the Ymir ban against Frostiak and the Ares ban against Frezzy, and, you know, Ymir goes to Frezzy as well. Seeing the Odin pickup, your mind automatically goes to, well, he's an aggressive guardian, watch out, but with Sylvanus on the table, Sylvanus is one of the gods that really can only play that one role in the guardian. So expect to see Odin either in the jungle or in the short solo lane. Vulcan going to be in the mid. Very excited about that character.
Dignitas banned out a Wheelix, and I like this ban. Last week we saw this crazy Geb Janus, and then instead of a Janus, it was Isis at times, combination with the Wheelix. There's so much knockups, and you could just instantly kill someone. So smart ban coming up from Team Dignitas, and Trig are going to round out their lineup very front line based. Sun Wukong and Cabrakan.
Sun Wukong was played to a very high level by Zelia a number of weeks ago.
He got mad at you.
He did, and I gave him credit. For Zelia was playing Sun Wukong, who is largely a distraction-oriented character. He's not going to really cause a huge burst impact. Zelia wound up topping the player damage charts in that game, of course, just because, well, of Zelia things. Cabrakan, on the other hand, quite the opposite. Cabrakan will be just as annoying, if you will, but a little more burst on Fat Loki's kit.
It is going to be a Chaac, though, picked up, and that's likely to be the soul underneath. So,
which fits with your original safe, clear analysis of give Barnes something easy. I still think that's the idea. Not necessarily give Barnes something easy, implying that he's a poor player, but without that tenureship on the team.
Experience, right?
Exactly.
It's a whole leaps and bounds away. So, taking a look at these team comps here, they have a very, very good early game in Team Dignitas, especially considering it's likely to be an Odin jungle. The Bird Bomb does a ton of burst. Additionally, Sylvanus Neith. There's absolutely no way. There is no way that we see Trix Tank and Funballer outpush this. And if they do, I will be astounded. I will be astounded. It's the hardest clearing hunter and the hardest clearing support in one lane together. Yeah,
and Apollo, one of the bigger problems Apollo had coming into Season 2 was the fact that his clear was a little lackluster due to the changes that we saw to So Beautiful and the lack of blue buff. He really was all about the basics. So with that, coupled with Sun Wukong, though, He's in the soul lane. So it's going to be Geb, who isn't exactly known for his clear either. So 100% they're going to be on the way of Team Dignitas with the likes of Push. As we get into it, 20 seconds till the minions spawn. Teams seem to be going normal. We saw a group up by Team Dignitas over there on the left-hand side.
Trying to find a pick.
That was more defensive, I think. It was, we'll just go with it. If somebody's out of position, we'll take them.
Yep.
But just a long way around. It's interesting, though. They don't waste any time.
Firework emote. Do you see that?
I also see the dance emote, Kevin.
I'm a big fan of that.
Oh,
Caramel dancing. Young Day, though, he's actually elected to go Bluestone. So even with the nerfs where instead of its 3% mana regeneration, it's 1.5 now, he still thinks this is strong. And he's going Heartseeker as well, which you're Neith. You have
Oh, yeah.
full clear, full control of the lane. Additionally, you have a self-heal in your kit. On the other side, Apollo, who we normally see go Heartseeker because of how hard he hits, he understands the lane matchup he's going to be facing. The strong push from the Sylvanus Neith, and we see Devo's gloves come out from Funballer.
I always like the Devo gloves onto the Apollo because you're basic attacking a lot, especially with that passive. So you wind up getting a lot of the lifesteal along with Death Toll and Devo gloves right there. And on the right-hand side, we're seeing the push that Chaac and Odin have as well, especially against this Cabrakan, whose early clear is not anything to be noted.
Nope. Odin already rotating out, and we're likely going to have to see some really aggressive plays coming out from Team Dignitas because when their dual lane coming out of Trig, that's just going to scale harder the later the game goes. Neith very good at controlling early, and don't get me wrong, she's still a hunter late game with hunter items, but she doesn't have a steroid in her kit like Apollo or like other carries do that they're going to be carrying harder.
Neith's answer to that is instead of having a steroid on herself, she has a debuff on the other player with Unravel. It'll actually lower the attack speed. But the problem with that is it doesn't help when you're sieging towers or when you're trying to burst out objectives. So in that sense, the other hunters wind up winning out, even though on paper it sort of balances out with the debuff.
A quick level 4 coming out from this Odin jungle. Frostiak, I'm a little surprised he didn't elect to try and steal away the enemy's back harpies, especially considering his dual lane's pushed up, so he didn't really have to worry about Funballer and Trickstank rotating to defend that. But Frostiak electing to play safe. I really want to see them trying to make some aggressive plays, though, because if they get behind early, it's going to be very hard for them.
And Odin peaks earlier than most of these other gods as well.
aggressive.
Odin isn't going to do what he's doing right now to this wave. He's able to jump in. Keep in mind, he's using a shield and a leap. So it's two of his defensive abilities to really do this damage, and it's going to peak mid-game, not late game like some of the other assassins.
And when we normally see Odin jungles played, they're paired with hyper carry somewhere else.
Very true.
AFK is really the only other team who runs Odin jungle, and they'll always put Cyclone Spin on a very hard carry. They'll put him on Wukong, they'll put him on a Wheelix, they'll put him on something that's going to be bringing damage to the late game.
So it's definitely sort of a handoff play when you're going to see this Odin. Even we see a lot of Pain of Beyond Odin, we mentioned it earlier, and that's, you know, the aggression comes from the support and then hands off to a jungler or something. And here's the earlier aggression you were talking about. Ring into the Vulcan ultimate. That's going to secure tons of damage. Shadow Nightmare gets the first blood for Team Dignitas.
That's exactly what they needed to do. They catch out that mid laner Lobster just a little bit out of position and not able to ult away. They're going to take both mid Harpies, it seems, as well. So Team Dignitas taking an early lead. Let's see if they can translate this.
The accuracy right there. Looks like Hugo Fred's going to fight for the Harpies. He does get the left ones as well as his team, and Team Dignitas picks up the ones on the right-hand side. The accuracy of Shadow Nightmare to land it. So the damage hit, and it's going to hit even if you don't hit it perfectly spot on. But the ring and the Vulcan ultimate, that was a bullseye.
There was no inch that Lobster could have gone. I mean, they line up perfectly. They're basically the exact same size, and Lobster was like, man, this kind of sucks. But you could see him. He's like on the wall. He's like, what? Oh, man.
It was impressive just how fast that came out. Barn very low, being a little too aggressive. I'd say Zelia not going to dive it despite having the ultimate available to him. Might just be biding his time to get the minions, and that's exactly what he'll do.
See if he's going to go in. Hog coming out from Barn.
Oh, yeah, he is.
He stayed. Knock up. That's going to be a 50% damage reduction, but it's not going to be enough. Final auto. Zelia is going to get hit by the Neith ult, but I mean, there's no one else to combo this with. Actually, Frostiak's in the area.
Does he have Blink? Not quite, and Zelia uses the bird to get away, no problem. Odin's Blink was on cooldown by just a couple of seconds. If you saw Blink, you would have definitely seen the jump bird bomb. Not quite available to him just yet. Lobster and his jungler will go ahead and clear the left side of the jungle.
So Team Dignitas took an early lead, but Trig has responded right back, and they actually have the gold lead. So little bit of farm going the way of Trig to counteract that 500 gold first blood.
Should be very interesting to see what Xayah does with this solo lane matchup.
Especially, he already has a kill too.
Exactly, and this is really where that annoyance factor of Sun Wukong becomes the top player damage. This is where that happens. A lot of the time, Sun Wukong just winds up being a disruptor, but this is how Xayah makes him into a top damage frontline bruiser by taking a kill early and really being able to manipulate the gold lead into something that just becomes devastating.
I think Barnes' inexperience is really showing here. He's already down 600 gold, and I mean, Xayah killed him, but that wasn't first blood, and it was a solo kill too. But I mean, he shouldn't be that far behind. So Xayah really abusing this matchup. I'm sure it's something he's played many times, and
Chaac versus Sun
may
Wukong
not be comfortable with.
Yeah, Chaac Sun Wukong is one of the classic solo lanes that we've seen.
Like season 1, though.
Yeah.
So I mean, Xayah is borrowing experience from a long time ago.
Exactly. And I mean, the game has changed a lot in the past 2 seasons, but Chaac Sun Wukong solo lane, not so much. Sun Wukong had gotten a nerf and a buff in that time on his wave clear, so not quite back to where it originally was, but very similar. The poke style is different, but Barn is playing a very aggressive Chaac, almost waiting inside the waves.
Cooldown boots finish for both mids. No surprise coming out from the Janus, but Shadow Nightmare electing to go cooldown. I mean, he always goes cooldown, though.
Yep.
I mean, no matter what god, Shadow Nightmare will go cooldown boots, and I'm a little bit surprised about this. I'm assuming he just wants to get his cooldowns more in line with the Odin, who has a very short cooldown on the ring, and look to combo it out every time they can.
And also, so when you think about Vulcan, you think about large burst damage. Mid-Harpy is going to spawn for the second time. Team Dignitas takes the left, and Trig Esports takes the right. You think about large burst damage when you think about Vulcan, but you also have to think about poke. And by paying attention to the CDR on this character, you're able to throw out more and more disruptive meatballs.
Trig's tank
Nice
gonna shield himself. Yep, gonna take away that root. But we have a gank in the right lane. Cabrakan, he's gonna go on Barn. He's gonna hit the stun here. Let's see if they can finish him off.
Slowed out a little bit, but using the ult to get out of the tremors. Great heads-up play by the solo lane stand-in Barn.
But they didn't spend anything to get that ult, though.
Nope. Tremors, and that's it. That's totally fine. And right there for Trig, would you expect Hugo to come back, just loop mid, come back, do the same damn thing?
I'm not sure, but here's the Vulcan combo again. It's going to hit. It's going to go on Trig's take, but he's so tanky, he's going to shield himself and be able to roll out. QO Fred going to try and turn it, but no one else is there. Xayah is rotating, though. Trig might be looking to keep this fight up.
Janus is here. Xayah is not going to come from behind. He's just going to show his face in the jungle. No ward shown out. Might have been able to go for it, but the call is clear. Trig Esports calls to retreat. We'll see the blue team slink back just a little bit here in the mid lane as a good push comes out from Team Dignitas, both jungle, mid, and support here.
So I do want to go back to your point. Do you think Cubo's going to loop around? And I don't think he will. I think he needs to put pressure elsewhere on the map. As you can see, they're actually far rotating to the left there. They notice that Vulcan back. They're going to try and pick off the support here. But I think it's more of a mental thing, right? Now Barn doesn't have his ult. He doesn't feel as safe as the Gold Fury started up. So Barn... Okay, they're just going to pull off. So
that's sort of testing the response time.
Yes.
They want to see how much vision, or Trig wants to see how much vision Team Dignitas has on this Gold Fury, how much attention they're paying to it. It's sort of it's what we call an option select. They're going to do it. And if nobody shows up, they'll just continue to do it. They'll take it. But if somebody shows up, they just go away. And they say, okay, not our due. We'll look someplace else.
Does Trix? No, Trix doesn't have Blink. I thought he was going to go on that. Going to miss the knock-up. Take a little bit of poke from the turret, though.
That's a powerful turret. It's actually very interesting. I would love to see what Vulcan is leveling here, because there's a number of different mentalities. It is going to be the backfire. Backfire is sort of the...
standard clear.
It's the standard. What happens is you just use that to clear, no problem.
But he's leveling up his turret second. Normally, if you'd see people level up the meatball for that
for the
burst
poke
damage.
That we were talking about, especially with the CDR. The turret actually works out well when maxing the backfire, though, because if you use your backfire, it targets them, and your turret will actually do extra damage onto a god. So a little bit of synergy right there. And as we said, there's a number of different Vulcan players that come to mind in the SPL, and almost all of them have different mentalities with how to prioritize the abilities.
And a lot of times it's matchups. We're going to see Shadow Nightmare take a fall there, but Lobster thinking better of re-engaging. He's like, oh, Sylvanus is there too. I'm just not going to fight.
And, they just caught an eye onto the Odin jungle. Frostiak showed himself a little bit too early on the right-hand side.
Lobster's backing off.
No reason for him to be there, especially with the third spawn of mid-camps. And as they did during number 6, or spawn number 2, minute number 6, they go. Trig and Team Dignitas wind up splitting. Left go to Trig, right go to Dignitas.
So Team Dignitas, I wanted to see them get rolling early, and they did with their first blood, but we haven't seen Frostiak really try and utilize this Vulcan Odin combo since. One time they did, but it was against Trig's tank, and Trig's tank was a little bit too tanky for them to deal with. He was really low, but they couldn't finish him off.
Yeah, and it was the tankiness and also the mobility. Just rollout came, and there was no follow-up, whereas last time they were able to really lock down their target of that Janus. He wasn't near any walls, so he couldn't get out anywhere.
They're looking for the combo again here. You can see Frostiak waiting around these mid-camp corners, but Lobster, he's placed his own sentry. Very smart play, and we've seen a lot of sentries come out around these mid-camps. Most notably from players that have Januses, because that way they know there's not a ward there, and they can hide around that corner and then ultimate through. But here we go.
Ring into the dunk. That's going to put a lot of damage onto the mid laner and a lot of hurt onto the support. And Frezzo, the Sylvanus, gets the double kill.
Yep, and then Team Dignitas are turning towards Gold Fury. It's going to be hard for Trig to stop this. Cabrakan's alive, Funballer's alive, and Zalia's on the wrong side of the map.
This is the way to go. We'll see how quickly Team Dignitas bursts it down. Just a couple of seconds, just under 5. It's about 4.5.
I'm pretty sure you said how quickly as they started it, and before you could finish it, Dignitas had cleared it.
Very, very quick damage coming out as Funball just barely evades the pull coming out from Frezzo's Sylvanus. So, 3 kills on the side of Team Dignitas, Adonis. 2 of those just went on to the support. If you talk to any support, they're going to tell you that's always the way to go. Realistically, Jeff Hinland preaches giving first blood to the support.
It's different.
How the 2 second kills?
You want him. I mean, it wasn't really Frezzo's fault there.
Yeah, it's not a decision you could have made. That's just how it goes. But in an ideal situation, is that really what you want?
Ideally, you want him to go on the Vulcan there. The Odin, his burst is from his base stats, like just his 2 and 1 combo together do so much damage. He doesn't really need the items. You want to get Vulcan ahead. You want him to get his burst, and he's working on Toth. You want him to get pin online as fast as you can, get some defensive actives. You want it on your mid laner in this case. But going to support's not the worst thing if you can get sovereignty online quickly.
Now, I wonder how long, we're talking about all about Vulcan's damage right now. I wonder how long this Soul Stone is going to be here. Shadow Nightmare has been a proponent of this item. He's been using this on a lot of his characters, really, regardless of if they're Isises or Januses. You see this Soul Stone come out of Shadow Nightmare a lot. He's using it very well, and I think that's why the CDR boost has really worked for him. He's making sure to only backfire after those 5 basic attacks, really making use of the extra damage coming from the item. So how long does this item stay relevant in his build is really what I'm looking for.
I think once he knows he's about to fight and he has to finish off an item, normally that's going to be more effective over any item you can get unless it's a tier 3. When you buy a tier 3 item and you get the extra passive, that's when you're going to want to sell it. If it's like, all right, if I don't sell this, I won't have enough gold and we're about to fight, time to sell it.
Mid camps again spawn splitted. We're split. Trig on the left-hand side, Dignitas on the right-hand side. That's pretty much the last one. The fourth mid-camp is
no
really...
word there. Youngbei could be in trouble.
Youngmei, no eyes on Cubo Fred. The dash in, he's got to know now. Stun comes out, the predictable backflip. How will they respond? The Hunter is rooted, but the ultimate from Cabrakan is instant. Tremor stops him, Funball gets the kill.
The rest of Team Dignitas is rotating in 3 versus 2, but it may be a little bit too late. Blink it by Frostiak, counter blink by Cubo Fred. He's out. Funballer has all. He's just saying, "What's up, guys?" At this point, he's waiting for his team to come back in.
The re-engage from Trig Esports. In comes the Geb, making sure to shield his carry. Vulcan ult is down, but it's used on the support. He will be safe. Funball's in the air. Where is he looking? On the front line. Lands right on top of Odin as Janus throws out the unstable vortex. Couple of more hits, but that Geb shield is good, and Frostiak gets a hit, but he dies to the portal from a Lobster. So an even trade right there coming out from Trig and Dignitas at the end of it.
Frezzo, can he hit the root? He does. Beads by Lobster. Lobster's going to turn around, but really, Cubo Fred there, turning around and stopping Shadow Nightmare was the important thing. Trig's tank comes in. Just a shield for a bro, and that's going to be an even trade. I think it was a 2-for-2 when with all said and done. Oh, no, it was a 2-for-1.
It was a 2-for-1.
Because Trig's tank got hit by a Vulcan ult and lived with like 5 health.
Yep. Yeah, essentially what happened was it was an even trade at the end of the day, but it started off very different with Youngbay taking a spill very early from that gank. So we saw it was a very cool sequence of events. Trig ganked the long lane, Team Dignitas responded, and Trig Esports hung out just long enough, specifically Funball, hung out just long enough waiting for his team to respond.
That was Funball, and you saw him there. I was like, why isn't he ulting out? And then I'm like, okay, QL-Fred's rotating. That's what is happening. He's baiting Team Dignitas to try and group up and get him, and then we did see a return kill. They were able to pick up Odin.
Now, how much of that is player-specific? Because when you look at Funball, that play could obviously be, well, he's just baiting us to see who else is coming. But Funball has a tendency to really stay in engagements long. Maybe I'm going to make them waste a couple of abilities before I leave.
And I even thought that, too. I was like, why doesn't he just ult out immediately? He could get in trouble here, but his team was able to respond just in time.
So
okay, I thought Cubo was going to gank that.
Cubo was also a nice part of that. The Odin blink in, the instant blink out from the Cabrakan. Really understanding that's an audio cue, folks. Hearing the blink will almost help you faster than actually seeing the blink. We hear a lot of the pro players really preaching how important sound is at a high level of play in here, Smite.
Things have calmed down a little bit. Team Dignitas had about a 2,000 gold lead. That's been shrunk to about 1,200. They still have a lead, but considering how early their team comp is with really the wombo combo of Odin, Vulcan, and then the high push of Neith and Sylvanus, they haven't really gotten full effectiveness out of it. And the later this goes, I think the better Trig is looking.
The later this goes, I think Trig definitely looks a little stronger only because of the Odin. We preach a lot of times, we even spoke about Neith not really having the steroid that she needs, but she still puts up numbers in the late game, and the Vulcan is very scary. Odin is going to be the real Achilles heel here for Team Dignitas as the game gets later and later, and Chaac's effectiveness as well. We haven't mentioned the soul lane in a while. Chaac's effectiveness sort of waxes and wanes depending on your playstyle.
But he's a very good, and that's something too here, is Team Dignitas has a very good objective control.
Exactly.
They have the Vulcan, which is just, I'm going to hit a giant AoE.
Go here.
They have the Odin, who's going to lock you in the giant AoE, and then they have a Chaac, who's going to silence players out for 3 seconds with his ultimate. And that's the crucial thing, is when it comes down to hog battles, if you're silenced for 3 seconds as a support, what are you going to do? You can't hog.
Yeah, Team Dignitas definitely want to look towards the objectives as they pretty much have them beat.
Yes.
They pretty much have Trig beat in all aspects.
But not right now. Trig is actually grouped up. I think Trig's like, do we have this? And then the Team Dignitas came right back in.
And Xaylia is doing a very good job of corralling Chaac. Xaylia wants to keep Chaac in the solo lane for as long as possible because of what you just said. That 3.5 second silence is really going to hurt on objectives. So these early Gold Furies are easier to get if Xaylia can keep Chaac, Barn, in the solo lane.
And Xaylia has been doing a fantastic job of controlling Barn.
Look at what he's doing right now. Staying in between Barn and the mid lane, saying, if you want to rotate, you'll run into the electric fence that is Xaylia. Blink in from the Geb, gets a good Cataclysm, and Odin counter initiates as well. No one in the middle to get hit by the Vulcan ultimate. Tremors again going to be off the mark. A lot of missed stuff right here, but the pull doesn't miss, and Xaylia is underneath the tower.
Yep, but he's going to go right up into that cloud, heal up, and he'll be safe. 2 blinks coming in.
Yeah.
Get blinking into the backline of Team Dignitas, and then Odin blinking into the backline of Trig, and no carries could really do any damage at that point. They were both being zoned by the frontliners.
That's what happened. We saw a lot of missed abilities, but it was really just them targeting each team targeting where each team used to be. They initiated at the exact same time, so less inaccuracy and more just quick reaction time or quick wits from both initiators on these squads. So a lot of abilities used for net nothing.
Bard's going to continue to push up this solo lane, and I do want to talk about it. Xaylia he had about a 1k gold lead. Now that Xaylia rotated that fight and got nothing out of it, it's been reduced, but considering that Dignitas got the first Gold Fury, and he's ahead 1,000 gold, Barn has just been getting out-farmed. But I know I'm talking about how the later this game goes, the better it is for Trig, but the later this game goes, the better it is for Barn on Dignitas, because he needs to try and catch up and reduce that gold lead.
3 members here for Team Dignitas. Looking at this mid lane tower, not much defense here on the side of Trig Esports. In fact, Trig's tank going to leave the tower by itself. Next minion wave coming up the lane here. Team Dignitas might be able to go for this, although no real range damage here. It's just Vulcan. They're going to target the player instead of the tower, and around the back comes Cabrakan. Tremors is down. Funballs is down as well. Janus is going to ult from the other side of the map. Funball gets credit for 1 kill. Bird Bomb used onto the Apollo, but he's still very safe. Trig Tank being the target right now, but he'll find his way to the backhand side of the fight, and Team Dignitas wind up with 1 dead member. Shadow Nightmare will fall in that spill.
Yeah, and Shadow Nightmare, you saw him ult, but something that not a lot of people know about that Vulcan ult is the longer it is, the more damage, the closer it is, the less damage. So if you're doing it at a point-blank range at about a 50% effectiveness rate, and you saw it just kind of, before when it's just chunking a Geb, now it's like tickling lobster on that Janus,
right.
So it's a big damage swing.
Vulcan definitely wants to use his ultimate on his own terms, not
being forced out.
Yeah. Frostiak, half HP here, surrounded by a Geb and a Janus, but the Unstable Vortex will be juked out of it by the dancing shoes of Frostiak, so smart moving right there from Team Dignitas' jungler.
Gold Fury, ward battle going on once again, and that seems to be, no one's ready to commit to a Fire Giant. They're still looking to get that Gold Fury advantage. The game's all but even. 1,000 gold separates the team, 700 experience. This game's still dead even, and no level 20s on the board.
Yeah, dead even, I think, is the real key. Coming into this one, we mentioned that it was a little close, but Trig might have momentum on their side. Momentum might work for the season, but this is game 1, and Team Dignitas, as you mentioned, trying to go to LAN. They haven't been looked at in a positive light for most of the season, so Trig Esports has the momentum on their side, but Team Dignitas, knowing their roster, they're not the type to really just lay down and take it quietly. So
oh no, there hasn't been a game where they've just really got just beat. So I mean, there's been a couple, but it hasn't been often that they're just straight up beat hard. They'll lose both their games, but they'll put up a challenge even against the top teams. You can see that here coming up against Trig Esports.
21 minutes in, folks. Not only is the golden experience all but tied, but kills are 4-4 on top of your screen. We'll take a look at the player damage, and Vulcan very much so on top due to his first 2 ultimates really being on the mark. Followed up closely, as close as you can be to a Vulcan, with the Odin, who's pressing go right now. That'll help the Vulcan damage a little bit, just barely taking out the shield. Shadow Nightmare trying to fire some sort of damage back. Frostiak forced out of the fight to the left-hand side. Team Dignitas with the rest forced into the middle, so they are spread out, but a nice jump. Very intelligent, but on the side, there comes Xaylia.
Xaylia, he's up in the air. Let's see if he can find it. He's going to hit Frostiak, but the Bird Bomb going to be there. He's going to stay alive for a little bit longer, and Xaylia, he's just going to run out of there.
Raven Shield has some of the most, you see how low the character is, and then a shield comes right back up. Trig Esports, in the meantime, does sneakily pick up the Gold Fury. That right there was happenstance distraction. The play wasn't distraction from the get-go, but at some point, Funball ejected and said, I'm going to hit gold.
You better not say that Xaylia is a distraction again. He's going to get mad at you. I mean, he was, though. I mean, Xaylia. Oh, but recognizing that the hog's down, Dignitas is making a very risky play. Trig Esports, do they know about this?
Trig Esports might
backing.
Yeah, they might not know about it, but also they do not have a Hog 3 to really contest. Trig Tank shows his face, but again, Team Dignitas, you said it, they did the math. Gold Fury Hog is down, no problemo. We'll go ahead and wake up the Fire Giant and grab it for no contest. And Team Dignitas grouping up as 5, heading down the middle lane. There's 500 gold for the tower. Tier 1 is all but taken, and Funball doing what Apollo's supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, Funball's not going to be able to fin this Tier 2 in mid. He's just going to take a Tier 2 of its own. It's already half Young Base trying to get to it, but I think Funball might no, okay, Funball's going to play it safe.
Funball, yeah, this is a situation where the Neith has the Fire Giant buff, not exactly wanting to go for it. Team Dignitas still aggressing in the mid lane, aggressed on heavily. Blink in from the Odin ult, and Vulcan is in a little bit of trouble. Cubo Fred gets a kill on the backhand side, making sure Shadow Nightmare would be punished for his deeds. Barn does get a kill onto Trig Tank, though. Right now, he's all alone underneath the tower. Tremors will keep him in place. Cubo gets another kill. Ultimate from Cabrakan, a little bit rough right there, but Odin barely getting away with a jump. Still being aggressed on, but Raven Shield coming up very soon.
Yep, Xaylia's in there. He's going to look. He's going to hit down on Young Base.
There's a slow. They're looking for Youngbay. Good crit coming out from Funball. One more basic. Can't quite find it. It's a beautiful body block coming out from the jungler right there. Frostiak low but in control. Zelia trying to land the cudgel from the backhand side. Can't quite make it. Funball in front of the tier 1. And Team Dignitas will take a tier 1 mid tower from Trig with the Fire Giant. But Trig responds correctly. Gets a pick. Gets a second. And grabs the tier 1 in control. And picks up the left lane with the help of a split-pushing Apollo.
That was just intelligent team fighting coming out from Trig. I want to break this down a little bit for you. So in the mid lane, we saw 4 members of Team Dignitas pushing, while Youngbay he had to defend the split push coming out from
typical 4-1 with an Apollo.
Yeah, this is very standard. Now, the interesting thing is that Odin Cage, when you use it against a Janus, the Janus can't portal through the Odin Cage. But if the cage is close enough to a wall, like it was in that mid lane, you can portal the wall and get through the Odin cage. We saw that. Now, Team Dignitas, they full dove that tower, except for Shadow Nightmare. Shadow Nightmare, like we were talking about earlier, he needs to sit back in the fights to get the full damage effectiveness.
Right.
He sat in the back, and then they comboed, but Janus got out, and so they full committed onto Fred, Trix Tank, who's super tanky, who they can't burst down under a tower. And then after that, Fred, Zelia, dive Shadow Nightmare in the back. There's all their damage gone, and then slowly Trig just picks them off one at a time and grabs 2 towers.
And do the aggression of Chaac really jumping in, which, for what it's worth, really had to go ahead and get the kill on the support. They were able to separate him from the pack, and that's really what we're seeing here. Is just separation from Trig Esports. They're isolating and grabbing. You can't really call them picks because they're mid-team fights. They're just isolating. They're playing these isolation plays mid-team fights. So just to get these people by themselves, very, very cool attention to. Smite's all about teamwork, and if you take the team away from you, you're going to be able to be punished, Fire Giant or nah.
No matter if you have Fire Giant, no matter if you're ahead, you still have to team fight appropriately. You need to focus the players. You need to focus. You need to protect your carries. And right there, Team Dignitas, they just weren't aware of Fred and Zelia coming around and focusing out their primary carry.
And that's one of the bonuses you get here from a long-time roster like Trig Esports. Zelia and Funball, a little newer to the squad, but Cuvo, Lobster, and Trix Tank have been playing together.
They've been a tricore since before a launch tournament.
Yeah, for a long time, going back to Amaranthine. These guys have been playing together, which is a number of months before the launch tournament. So really, really just understand the way each other are going to be able to play and jump in, and that's exactly what we're going to see right here. Zelia already low.
Yeah, Zelia, he's just trying to bait out as much as he can, though. You can see him sitting there, popping that shield to the underworld, reflecting some of the damage back. And Team Dignitas, I love this. They're still committing. Blink in by Cuvo. Counter blink coming out. Bird bomb coming through. Funballer's going to fall.
Funball immediately eliminated, which is a lot of the damage coming out from Trig Esports. They will still push up, despite the fact, though, Team Dignitas trying to play a little bit of damage, but Trig has not focused as hard, or rather focused specifically on targets as hard as they did last time. 3 members of Team Dignitas, half HP.
That time, Frezzo protected Shadow Nightmare. We saw the fight go much differently.
Yeah, and that's why. It wasn't that Trig weren't focusing on individual targets. It was the good play of the Guardian not allowing that hyper focus on the DPS right there. So Team Dignitas, despite losing the Fire Giant in the last fight, will still go ahead and be able to pick up not just a tier 1 but a tier 2, and they're going to take a look at the drive by Gold Fury. Not quite. They'll walk right by.
Fire Giant's up. They can't risk going for this Gold Fury and then not make it to Fire Giant in time. And you see that. You see actually Shadow Nightmare and Frostiak. They know they can't back because they don't want to have what they did to Trig happen to themselves. They don't want to snuck Fire Giant.
Yeah, if you guys are just tuning in, Team Dignitas picked up their first Fire Giant after immediately noticing Hog was down when Trig committed to the Gold Fury. And right now, a lot of commit onto Frostiak will force a response from Team Dignitas. Lobster fires from all the way on the backside to grab the kill onto the Odin. With that pick, they're going to get aggressive. Trig hitting the gas pedal. Cuvo Fred gets the kill onto the mid lane Shadow Nightmare. Tremors are down, but a Wrath of Terra is going to use to disrupt that disruption. 2 people fall through a portal into a Cataclysm. Great heads-up play coming out from the Get player on Trig Esports. There's nowhere for you to go, Barn. 1 tremor, 1 stun. Cuvo picks up another kill, and the jungler for Trig is looking absolutely incredible.
Everyone on Trig looked fantastic that fight. They're going to take out 4, and they're going to focus down the Fire Giant. Prezzo's alive, but, I mean, he just hogged mid-wave. He just hogged the wave in mid. It's 50 seconds. I'm assuming his thing was, I'm not going to be able to contest this anyway. He's going to play it incredibly safe there. And Trig Esports, who have really, I think, been team fighting better than Team Dignitas, now have the Fire Giant and the levels on their side.
I really liked just how snap decision that seemed to have been made. From the outside looking in, of course, we're not in the comms. That didn't look like a planned team fight.
Oh,
Frostiak got he was a little slow to make it up the jungle, which forced, all right, Team Dignitas is going to respond a little bit. Trig just picks up the pick and says, all right, all in. All the ultimates come out, and Trig commits and winds up getting a Fire Giant off of what was almost an accident.
Yep, and another thing too is Shadow Nightmare. He's gone Aegis instead of a combat blink. Like a lot of times we'll see these low mobility mages go to escape, especially teams that run something like Cabrakan, and he's not really. Is that a shell?
Yeah, keep going with your Shadow Nightmare because this feeds right into it.
I'll let you feed right into it, but Shadow Nightmare, when he gets caught, he can immune damage for a couple seconds, but he can't reposition himself. So once he comes out of that damage immunity, he's still going to die if Trig are dominating the team fight.
Yeah, Shadow Nightmare is pretty much just a pause button waiting for, or the Aegis is a pause button waiting for the response. And on the other side of the screen, we see a mid laner building Shell. This is very, very exciting because it's not necessarily about Janus. It's about the play of the team. Shell fit the comp that they're doing. They're really team fighting a lot, and nobody else on the side of Trig had room for it. So Janus picks it up. Lobster making a team play in the active department.
I mean, when you're playing Janus, you have so much mobility. You can escape these team fights very quickly, as we've seen Lobster do multiple times, even against an Odin. What he always does is Lobster's always against walls.
And there's the Odin. Wrath of Terror going to follow up very quickly. The Vulcan ultimate will hit just the support. With that said, Geb, very, very low force out on the bottom side, but on the top side, meanwhile, damage. Cuvo Fred gets a kill. Lobster gets a kill, and they're still looking forward. Mesmerize will stop 2 members in their track, and Cuvo gets one on the back. Funball gets one on the front. Still looking at Odin. Odin jumps. Apollo dashes. Tremors is down. Zelia gets the stun. Can they kill him before? And they can. Cuvo gets the kill right before the fountain. And with that, Trig will look at an empty Titan, and Trig Esports takes game 1.
They took game 1 fantastically, and this is a mark of a very good team to be faced up against a team comp that is very early game based and gets the early lead. They don't get incredibly far ahead, but Trig were able to hold off Dignitas from getting too far ahead in these team fights, too far ahead early, and even with Fire Giant, they were able to defend. So Trig looking very good right now. They're in control of their own destiny, and they take game 1 off Team Dignitas.
Yeah, what I'm seeing out of this game 1 immediately is just how well Trig Esports is team fighting. Team Dignitas is doing all of the other things correctly. They're farming well. They're getting leads in lanes. They're really pushing out well. They're even grabbing objectives when they need to be smartly.
Yes.
As that first Fire Giant went, but Trig able to just out-military their opponent.
So everyone played amazing there, and I think a good thing too is how Trig responded to Team Dignitas' team comp. I mentioned it at the end there. Lobster, he took a spill for First Blood, and he got comboed here, and you're going to be able to watch it. Shadow Nightmare takes him out. But what he did, you see him in the middle of the lane in the First Blood, right? And he just he's not near a wall. After that, you saw him just sit next to a wall. So even if Odin blinks in and cages him, he's still able to portal out through the wall. And you saw that actually in the last fight. He got caged again, and he's just he gets knocked up, and he was able to portal before.
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Jungle Control coming up right here. We'll take a look at how both of these teams really did what they had to. 53% on the side of Trig Esports, and you'll see a lot of that comes from the bottom side. We talked about the first mid camps went to Team Dignitas largely, but later on they were just split down the middle. And that was the story for Gold and Fire Giant as well.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very even game. There weren't too many invades. The small advantage that Trig has, they really got from taking those buffs in the last team fights once they had advantages. But throughout the game, I mean, it was just back and forth, very even. They were tied in gold for 20 minutes, and then it was 2 team fights in a row that Team Dignitas lost cleanly, and then the last one was a deicide, and I mean, they were at they were at the Phoenix at that point.
Yeah, no, it's a back and forth game, very much so. Very exciting stuff coming out from both of these teams. We mentioned it coming into this broadcast. This Saturday today is going to be a very close sort of series we've got today and later on North America as well. But the Cabrakan pick was doing very well, and QO Fred will be your player of the game for Game 1 right here in Trig versus Team Dignitas. 707 will be the slash line for the Cabrakan.
He didn't die.
He played very well. He
Yeah,
was everywhere he needed to be when he was there.
This is what we're talking about, right? Shadow Nightmare in the back line, and what is he going to do when he gets dove by Cabrakan? And I mean, Zaylia was there too. Zaylia was kind of like, all right, I'm going to hit you once or twice. Cuvo can finish you, and Cuvo played it perfectly. He was always counter-engaging on the enemy carries. He was always in the position he needed to be, and he was always in the team fights.
That's the key point for me. Always in the team fights. That's where we mentioned it earlier. A lot of these wins in these fights came from isolating individual players, and it wound up being a lot of the time Cabrakan chasing somebody out of the fight and then using the ult to keep them isolated. Tremors was a huge impact. And one of the bigger things that Cabrakan has against him right here is how easily, the little BM kill.
Yeah, I saw that BM kill.
How easily it is to disrupt the Tremors. I watched QO Fred very carefully pick when he activated that. 9 times out of 10, Wrath of Terror was down, and the things that would cancel that ability were already down, allowing him
up and
allowing him to deploy it without issues. So really cool play coming out from QO on that Cabrakan.